Next up, we have Natasha Markham. She's a registered architect and urban designer. She's worked on a variety of different project types in New Zealand and in the UK and has a special interest in housing. And more recently, she's worked as an urban designer for local government and is currently engaged in architectural practice, and she writes for Ideologue magazine. So, Tash.
Let's talk about one of my pet passions, which is windows. And my fervour for fenestration frequently causes a few sideways glances. But windows are a fundamental part of architecture because they affect the environmental comfort, quality of interior spaces, and of course the overall aesthetic of the building. The word window actually comes from the ancient Norse windauga, which means wind eye, and it's basically a hole in the roof. It provided ventilation and a small amount of light to the interior of large longhouses like this one, which typically accommodated around 50 people. They say necessity is the mother of invention, and you can just picture some frustrated Viking taking to the roof after a long winter spent in close confines of the smoky fire and 50 others, probably all on a diet of herring and red deer. But the first windows, in fact, appeared well before this time. Early Neolithic houses commonly had a hole in the roof to vent fires and let in light, and in this settlement of Çatalhöyük, which is in modern-day Turkey, small windows were also incorporated under the eaves, which was a good idea, and it caught on fast. As buildings became more sophisticated, windows were used to more dramatic effect as a symbolic connection to the heavens or as a way of highlighting religious icons, and the oculus at the Pantheon is a good example of this. In the Middle Ages, the control of light for symbolic purpose was given a new dimension. Stained glass windows were used to impart the stories of the Bible to largely illiterate masses. The church quickly recognised the skill of the architect to inspire people's awe of God, and it became a bit of a pissing contest as to who could build the loftiest spaces with the most daring windows. On the domestic front, the general populace was still much in the dark. The use of glass was not seen till much later, and instead oil, parchment or shutters were used to keep out the cold. Openings were small and interiors dim. But by the late 17th century, things were beginning to lighten up. Advances in glass manufacture made the material more readily available, and the development of the sash window meant openings were larger and construction of windows finer, so the Georgian interior was much lighter. The Georgians were inspired by ancient Greece and Rome. They liked symmetry and regularity, and you can see this in both the design of the windows and their placement within the building facade. And this sort of theme remained popular until the earlier 20th century with the arts and crafts movement. Then along came modernism, which built on these ideas and then blew them out of the water. The building was now thought of as a container, and its walls no longer load-bearing, conceived as skin. So windows could be arranged more freely within the facade, and sort of balanced asymmetry was considered a desirable outcome. But of course, the point is that both the Georgians and the modernists designed their windows and their placement in the building. Clearly that's not happening here, and that's why design is pretty important. So with modernism's new structural rationale, windows also became larger and more light-filled. Corb considered light to be one of the fundamentals elements of architecture, revealing space and representing clarity. But to a certain extent, this emphasis on light is a cultural ideal. In his beautiful essay in praise of shadows, Junichiro Tanizaki contrasts the West's appetite for light and clarity with the East's appreciation of the subtleties of shadow. And our strive for progress becomes glaring in the context of a more nuanced Japanese aesthetic. Back in the West, modernism's quest for clarity reached its zenith with buildings like Philip Johnson's Glass House and Mises Farnsworth House. Windows were no longer elements and walls, they became the walls themselves. Glass walls were becoming a defining feature of commercial buildings too, with curtain walls allowing light to penetrate much deeper into large buildings and providing uninterrupted views to the world beyond. But what happens when the sun goes down? I've always been fascinated by the transformation of buildings after dark. The structure of buildings dissolve and lit windows are sent into high relief. The paradox of the window is that after dark, the viewer becomes the viewed, and windows serve as portals into other worlds. Of course, all this glass has fueled our appetite for view, and in particular, the panorama. It's sold to us in real estate magazines, hotel brochures and tourism guides, and undoubtedly there is something great about the sense that everything is within your sight. However, I sometimes think that in our quest to see more, we forget the magic of the framed view. a well-placed window can edit out the dross and transform quite ordinary scenes into something special. To me, this view transports you beyond the four walls of the room and out into a world full of possibilities. A good window can also draw your attention to relationships you weren't aware of, like the alignment of St Kevin's Arcade with Myers Park and the Sky Tower. It's the sort of thing that can make you look at your world afresh and give you a richer understanding of place. I thought I'd finish with one of my favourite windows. This is from Luis Barragan's own house in Mexico City. And the seamless transition between inside and out draws your gaze out into the garden, but then the cross sort of interrupts this view, turning your focus within and making the space feel very reflective.